Cold calling is dead. But in this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact process that we use inside of my company to get 20 times the results of traditional cold calling through something called Cold Calling 2.0. What's going on, everyone? My name is Ravi Abuvala. If you're new to the channel, I'm the founder of Scaling with Systems, where we build customer acquisition machines for our clients. And if you're returning to the channel, here's a little fun fact. Did you know that 90% of you are not subscribed to my channel? So you guys are getting all this free value, yet you don't take the one little second to move your little mouse down and hit that subscribe button. Totally free to you, means the world to me. If you guys get value out of the videos, please be sure to hit that down below. And with that being said, let's dive right in. So let's first talk about why cold calling is dead. Now, I myself have never been a big fan of cold calling. As a systems-based company, I'm always looking to get the maximum amount of output possible with the least amount of input required, and cold calling simply didn't do that. I used to cold call, and I would call 300 to 400 medical spas every single day, and I would be lucky if I could speak to maybe 3 to 4 actual prospects or decision makers and book one appointment from it. The truth is that cold calling is massively inefficient. It deflates morale. It is a time sucker, and it's just not the best use of your time because you're calling people that have never heard of who you are. They have no idea what you offer. You have no frame. You have no authority. And there's also a bunch of software and systems out that Apple just released. So now if it's a phone number that's not registered or that is typically seen as spam, it'll just automatically silence that call and you can't get through the prospect anyway. So with literally almost everything in the universe conspiring against us doing cold calling, let's talk about how you can do Cold Calling 2.0 and leverage it inside your business to have massive returns on your time and money spent. So Cold Calling 2.0 is when you simply use some sort of mechanism before your cold call in order to initially engage and qualify the prospect. And in layman terms, what that means is that you're not calling every single person on a list, but instead you're only calling people that are already at least somewhat familiar with who you are and thus have already kind of pre-qualified themselves. Let me give you a very specific example of Cold Calling 2.0 that we do inside of our company. So we typically work with business-to-business entrepreneurs, helping them grow and scale their company through client acquisition machines. And one of the ways that we do that is we cold email businesses that we find on multiple different platforms and engage them in our sales process in order to get them to become clients. And one of the reasons why I like cold emailing is because I can send thousands of cold emails a day with almost no additional effort because of the use of software and technology. But you see, that's not enough because that would just be cold emailing and that's not cold calling. No, Cold Calling 2.0 is after you send those 1,000 to 2,000 emails, you can use a software like we have inside of our company that lets us actually see who's opened that email and sends us a notification when they open the email. And then we pick up the phone and dial those people within 5 minutes of them opening the email. And we're on their mind. They're usually impressed that we were able to see that they had just opened the email. And they've already kind of qualified themselves because they already know somewhat of what our marketing message is. And we're not necessarily coming in cold. I have a totally separate in-depth video where I walk through cold emailing and how we use it to make $10 million in our company that I'll link in the description down below that you can watch after the end of this video. So that's one way to leverage Cold Calling 2.0 for outbound prospects in order to only have to call 1/10 the amount of people that you would originally have to with 10 times the amount of results. But let's talk about another type of Cold Calling 2.0, which is for inbound leads. So for example, we set up YouTube videos like these all the time. I run paid advertisements. We have sales funnels. We have Facebook groups. So we get hundreds of inbound leads that come into our company every single day. Now, I'm still technically cold calling them, but it's in this 2.0 version where they already kind of know who I am. And we've already used automation and software and scale to get their initial interest without me having to devote any extra time or energy. And then I'm only calling the people that are actually interested enough that they gave us their phone number. So out of the hundreds of inbound leads that we get every single day, I can filter through and find who are the most qualified, who's consumed the most content, who's given us the most information. And I can call maybe 10 or 15 of those people and book 80% of those people into an actual appointment. Every single time I come across a client that's currently using cold calling as their main client acquisition source, I will literally build a system exactly like this, where instead of having cold calling be their first touch point, we have something else like a YouTube video, a lead magnet, or cold emailing going out, which is much more massively scalable, and then only calling people that come inbound from that. And when we're doing that, like I said, we're doing 1/10 the amount of work, but usually 10xing or 20xing the amount of results that they get. Okay, so just the mechanics behind cold calling 2.0, although is transformative for how you're currently doing your cold calling, it's not going to be enough to actually set appointments on the calendar. So let me give you a few more tips that I recommend in order to increase the efficiency of the work that you're doing for cold calling. The second thing is that before you even pick up the phone and dial that prospect, you need to have as much information as possible. So what do I mean by this? Well, if I'm doing an outbound message, maybe it's after I had sent them a cold email, I should also have what kind of industry they're in, what their company size is, maybe what their website looks like, so that whenever I get on the phone, I can add that personalization points. I can talk to them in their first name. I can talk to them about their company name and actually show that I give a you-know-what more than just calling 150 people in 10 seconds on the phone call, which they're definitely going to hang up on. If they're coming inbound to me, I want to see what content have they consumed already. Have they gotten our free course? Have they watched some of our free trainings? Have they gone into our YouTube videos, which we track all of that inside of our CRM, so that whenever we're picking up the phone, I can say, hey, James, it's Ravi here. I saw you got access to our free course, The 3 Steps to Scale. I wanted to send you an additional bonus training that you might not have gotten your hands on. What's the best email to send that to? And when I say that, they know that I have all their information already pulled up, and I also know who's worth my time calling because they've consumed 10, 15 pieces of content from us versus who's somebody that maybe just entered the pipeline. Once again, the idea here is that when I pick up the phone, I am being as efficient as possible with my time. The next cold calling 2.0 tip I have for you is to match their tonality and their language. So if I pick up the phone and dial somebody and they say, hey, this is Bob, how can I help you? I'm going to match their speed and say, hey, Bob, it's Ravi. Do you have a second? And because I'm actually matching their tonality and their language, they're going to see it as more familiar, and it's going to almost trick their brain into not automatically putting up the guards up whenever you answer the phone call and you don't know somebody. Alternately, if they're a little bit slower, maybe they're older and they go, hello, this is James. How can I help you? I'll match that tonality by saying, hey, James, this is Ravi. Do you have a moment? And because of that, once again, I am matching their tonality and their language so that they're less on guard and they're more willing to have a conversation. Which brings me into my next tip, which is pattern interruption. Now, in a cold call, the first 5 to 10 seconds are the most important. You can use those to buy an additional 20 or 30 seconds after that. But if you blow it, you're definitely not going to have any more time to pitch your products or services. So most people, when they call somebody, the first line is, hey, this is Ravi, how are you? Which in truth, nobody actually cares how you are, and that's how everybody says whenever they call somebody, and so you're not really interrupting their pattern. But instead, if you say, hey, Bob, this is Ravi, do you have a second? Or, hey, Bob, this is Ravi, did I catch you at a bad time? It forces them to think and then answer. And whether they say, no, I don't really have a lot of time, and you say, okay, great, this will just take a second, or they say, yes, I do have a second, and you go, great, this will just take a second. Either way, it forces them to think and it gets your foot in the door. Also, another example of pattern interrupt is, once again, in cold calling 2.0, when you have the lead's data in front of you, you can say stuff like, hey, Bob, this is Ravi here. I saw that you downloaded our free 3 Steps to Scale course, and I wanted to give you an additional training. When you say that, they know that they've already consumed your content, they know where you're coming from, and they know that you've done a little bit of research and history on them, and it's not just somebody that's picking up the phone and calling the same 5,000 leads and treating them all equal. Now, the next thing you need to be sure that you're doing before and during the call in order to increase your efficiency is setting the intention. What do I mean by that? Well, before you get on the call, you should have an idea as far as what is the next step you want to get that person to from that cold call. What is the intention or the destination of that cold call? For the majority of people, it's just going to be to get them on an actual sales call or a demonstration call. The mistake that I see most people make is they try to sell their products or services right there on the cold call. That is not the time to do it. They typically have 1 to 3 minutes, and they usually haven't even consumed enough content to make a buying decision anyway. So what you want to do is have the intention before you get on the call and during the call, and state it to them, hey, so just to let you know, I want to ask you a few questions on this call, take about 30 seconds of your time, and then if it makes sense, I want to walk you through how it's possible that scaling with systems could help you grow your business. Does that seem fair to you? And I'm saying it's going to take 30 seconds, and these are my intentions, and then I can tell you how we can potentially help you. And when I do all of that combined together, they understand what the outcome of the call is going to be. They have clarity, and they're going to make a decision right then or there if they're willing to do it. Which, by the way, it's not a bad thing if they're not willing to do it. Great. We hang up the call right there. I'm not wasting my time. I'm not wasting their time, and I move on to the next person. The next tip that I have for you for effective cold calling is to do the least amount of talking. Whoever talks the most loses, because in reality, people love to hear their own voice. I mean, listen to me. I'm rambling here for like 15 minutes straight on the video with you, and all I'm looking at is a black lens. Okay. So people love to hear their own voice. And when you're always talking over them, you're trying to interrupt with them, they don't want to speak with you anymore. And most people are such terrible listeners that even if you're a cold caller and you're calling somebody, if you actually listen and genuinely actively listen to what they're saying, and you respond back with more questions based on what they said, they are more likely to give you another 20 seconds, 30 seconds, which in the cold calling world is an eternity. So spend some time actually listening to what they're saying and then respond back with what they had said, plus an additional question after that. And when you do that, I have noticed that people are willing to outpour their entire lives on you. Like I've had people say on a call with me before, a cold call, "Oh my God, I feel like I know you," or "Oh my God, I've wanted to get off that chest for months now." And when they say that, I know that I have them hooked, okay? Because in reality, if you can get them to have that familiarity with you and to get them to actually trust you on that first initial call, it's much easier at the end of the call when you ask them to set them up on a next appointment that they're going to say yes and they're actually going to show up to it. Which brings me to my final tip on effective cold calling or appointment setting, and that comes down to actually following up with the lead even before they have the demonstration. So when we do cold calling 2.0, the average call is about 2 to 3 minutes long. And by the end of it, there's a good chance that that person has totally forgot that they even spoke with you in the first place. And that's just the reality of the situation. So what I will almost always do at the end of the call is I have a template inside our CRM where I will send them an email following up with some notes on what we said on the call, when their next scheduled call is, and maybe some additional assets or homework they can consume before they have the next call. And when I do that, what happens is that they see that email the next time they log into the email. It once again is another asset or piece of content for them to consume. They build more trust with me, and they're much more likely to show up to that follow-up or demonstration call. A little bonus tip for you is that if you have a cold calling team or an appointment setting team, once they've actually set the appointment, have them introduce the prospect, the sales executive, and the appointment setter or cold caller all in a group text before the call, which gives the ability for the account executive or the salesperson to build rapport and build a relationship before they even get on the call with them. That's going to massively increase your show up rates. And it took our show up rates from like 60% to 80% within just a few weeks. Now, if you're looking for much more in-depth client acquisition training and how I've scaled my company to almost $1 million a month in cash, I have a free training link in the description down below that walks you through how you can take your business in 4 simple steps to hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. So click the link in the description down below and get access to that right now. Like I said in the beginning, over 90% of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so it would mean the world if, even if you don't get the training, you just smash the subscribe button. It would mean the world to me. And make sure you watch the video on the screen right here on our cold emailing technique and the exact template that we've used to make $10 million cold emailing. I'll see you guys in that video.